Now, first of all, I would like to pass you over to Kate and to reveal the little secret. Somebody that hasn't been home for 139 years. Okay, so
Thank you, Pat.
without further ado.
What I'm about to unveil, as Pat said, 139 years since it's been home. Mary Jane Murphy, who was born down the road in 1870, and when she was 16 she headed for the States. Before she got on the boat, she went over to the strand and she picked up a pebble. And somewhere along the line, she was given what I'm going to unveil now. Now, whether she took it off the dresser in the house or whether her mother gave it to her, we're not terribly sure. But anyway, it's come home and I'd like to unveil it.
Now,
There it is.
I think those people who are responsible for all this.
And thank you very, very much for bringing it over to us. We really appreciate it. We'll put it somewhere safe. Thank you.
Is there tea in it?
And the most significant thing about all this now, I think, is that that little teapot and the little stool are creeping. I'm sure, and I'm certain, as a child, Mary Jane would have sat on that. And that was brought from Derrycorb in 1859, when her father, Tom Murphy, and his wife, Winnie Barrett, from Glencastle, and his mother, Jane Gibbons, landed first in Castron. And he brought this little stool with him, which was, as I said, known as a creepine. And this is the sort of height grown men and grown people sat on in those days. They sat comfortably by a big roaring fire on a creepine, 6 inches off the ground.
Wow.
And it's the first time that these two little items have been together in that long
That's
time.
Mary Jane Murphy, and that's her husband, Daniel McCarthy, and two of her children. She never came home. She married and died over there.
The child in the middle of the photo is Nora McCarthy, and that's our grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Now there's so many siblings,
Don't know.
and some of them died, 3 of them died. In 1860, I believe, the first child was born here, Bridget. She died. Then Ned, or Edward, or Edmund, as he was christened as, but was always known as Ned Murphy. Ned became a well-known, not only local athlete, but a respected county athlete in his time as a miler. And then born was Jane in 1880s, 66, but she died. And then Jane came along again, as they renamed another child Jane, and she born in 1868. She lived, and she became the wife of Tony Barrett in Mullagh. But she died in the mid-1920s, with her husband died shortly before, leaving 5 children. They all immigrated, 3 to America, 2 to England. And one of them, Mary, married Henry Monaghan, Paul Moore, and Mrs. Bridges' uncle. Now, the rest of them stayed here, coming and going to Scotland and England in the late 1890s up to the early 1900s, working on building sites. Pat, James and Peter, my grandfather. My grandfather was the youngest. He was 4 years old when Mary Jane left here. She was locally known as Maureen Rua. Her father died a short time before she left. He had known she was leaving, and they were convinced he was only 2 weeks feeling sick. He died at 56 years of age, I believe. And she left Captain as his 16-year-old, never came back. She wrote to them, we believe, many times in the early years. And these are her descendants gathered around us here today. And there are only 2 of the clan of Murphy now living, left in Carson, my nephew and myself. And when I was a youngster, I remember maybe 22 of the Murphy clan here in Carson. I don't know what's in Glencastle, the Barrett side of it. I think they did better. They had this report a bit better. And the Murphys in Derrycorrib certainly did, as it proved today. Those 2 ladies now have come to join us. And Liam was here from the Barrett side. I think you'd find it a bit interesting to go back to the origin of those 2 names, Barrett and Murphy. Starting off with the Murphys. You see, the surname itself has no meaning written in English when you look it up. Murphy, what does it mean? Where do you go look? You have to go right back to the origin of the Irish language, with Celtic origin. And it comes, when you break it down, from the word muid hu, or the sea hound, or the ocean hound. The Murphy was a notorious seaman in ancient times and up to the smuggling times, when smuggling was rampant on this coast. And these people sailed and travelled as far away as Jamaica, would you believe it, and brought rum and tobacco back. And other things that I wouldn't go into now were exchanged. And the name itself then is linked to, he was so fast on the ocean he could get in and out of any port and anywhere without being noticed or detected. And he became known as the Hound of the Ocean. He named his boat then Unwood Ho, or the Sea Hound. And that's where the name itself comes from. Other names then have come from this, Murray or Murray, and then Murrayhurty, which was another seafaring Mudman, and all the others, Murdach, and all that goes with them. And then you go back to the Barrett's origin. It's more complicated and more sophisticated in some ways. In old and ancient times, there was a lot of tribal warfare and disputes in this country. Pre-Christian, goes back that far. Great warriors fought hand to hand with sword and shield. And one great man designed and devised his own method of protecting himself, particularly the upper body. He made of pure rawhide a very strong garment. It was like a big circular cloth with a hole in the middle. And he would drop it down over his head, and it came down over his shoulders, over his chest, his stomach, and he was able to face anyone in battle because they found it very hard to pierce this hide. And he called it Barrett, which means the top cloth. And as the years went by and time went on, people start phoneticizing this word like they do when accents change and dialects start to shift and people lose the old dialect. And he became known as Barrett, and then they took the fathers off it and became known as Barrett, which is Barrett. The old Irish for Barrett is Barrett or Barrett. And that's how the surname started. That was a long time before anybody from France, I think, came to this coast. And a lot of names have evolved from this Barrett or Barrett. They were famous for castles, big castles. They had at least 3 big castles on the Mullet Peninsula here in this parish, up to the 12th century. The last one was in Thrawn, just behind the church, down at Ballinacloy, just behind Bruchlan there, up that road, and you go back at the end of the road into there, and there's a big mound there, and they are the remaining stones of the last remaining Barrett Castle here. And there was one of these Barretts, and he was Andrew Barrett, and his son was called Mac Andrew, and this is where the surname McAndrew came from. To this day we have a lot of McAndrews here, but they too are descendants of Barrett. He had other sons and nephews following, and he had a famous one, Muyoch, which today has become Mayock, the surname Mayock. That was again was anglicised, and whatever else was done with the two accents gave various accents, varying accents. And Timmerline was a little fella that had only a small thumb of hair on his head. And he was called Timmerline, little bush or little thumb. And that's the name that has become Timlin today, the surname Timlin. You see how much that has changed. And then O'Chumley then was the one that used to do all the driving. He used to drive the cattle through the old cattle trails among the mountains and hills in the days